Hi there, it's Kate. Welcome back to my channel. I'm here today to talk about the books that I read in the last week and a half or so since the last time I recorded. Normally this would be Friday reads, but today is Sunday, so I don't know what this is called, but that's what I'm going to talk about. It's been a while since I filmed the last video, like a week and a half or so. I've finished 2 books and I started several others, the first chapter or so, and didn't really get into them. So I'm not going to talk about those, but I will talk about the other 2 books that I plan on continuing with. So the first book that I finished was a contemporary romance called The Hayden Game by Sally Thorne. And this takes the trope of enemies to lovers and just like fully embraces it. And it was cute. The beginning where like the premise and the trope was being set up was a little bit much for me, but then when the characters did start falling in love, etc., it was very cute and I did like it a lot. So I liked especially the last half of the book. The first half of the book I could have kind of take it or leave it, but I do recommend this if you're looking for something that's lighthearted contemporary romance. This definitely fits the bill. I believe this is an Australian author, but the book is set in like the Bay Area in the United States. So that was kind of fun. Contemporary romance. It was great. It was great. I was smiling when I was reading it, which is always a good sign. And then, oh my goodness, then I read this book, The Great Believers by Rebecca Makkai, and I loved it. It was so good. So this book goes back and forth between 2 different timelines. The first starts in 1985 with a main character, Yale, who is a gay man in Boys Town in Chicago during the AIDS crisis. And his timeline, it's fraught. His friends are contracting AIDS, HIV and AIDS, and dying. And he's also he's a fundraiser for an art museum at a local university. And as a part of this, he is working with a donor or a potential donor and learning about this set of artwork that she wants to donate to the museum. And so this actually forms kind of a 3rd timeline in the book, in which Nora is telling us about her time in Paris, right around the time of the First World War and the influenza epidemic. And her story actually ends up, even though it's kind of this 3rd half perspective, it actually ends up framing the entire novel, which is, I think, really well done, in which she talks about how her life as a woman in love, as an artist, that her fundamental being was interrupted by these things, the war, the flu epidemic, and what that meant for her, like before and after. And so we follow Yale and his timeline in 1985, and then we also follow the book starts out with the wake of one of Yale's friends. Nico has died of AIDS, and his sister's Fiona. So the 3rd timeline, or the second major timeline, is that of Fiona in 2015, and she's in Paris, France, searching for her estranged daughter and granddaughter. And Fiona had been there in 1985, through the 1980s in Chicago, and even though her brother had died, she had been really taking care of these other young men with HIV and AIDS, and really became really affected by it. And so she's also experiencing life interrupted, both by the AIDS crisis, right? What happened, the girl that she was before, she was just a young girl, and then it stayed with her for her entire life. And now she's in Paris and she's experiencing, not only reliving these memories of what happened in the 80s and early 90s, but also she's now experiencing terrorism in Paris. And so it's just this really interesting reflection on how life gets interrupted and what that means by these kind of cataclysmic awful events. But I think for me, the thing that was, so the structure of the book was phenomenal and amazing, but the characters were incredible. I fell in love with these characters, and not in a way that was sappy. Like I wasn't crying in this book, and there were certainly times when perhaps you could imagine crying, but it was all just, the characters were so believable, and the situations were so believable that I couldn't put it down, even though there's not really a plot to the book. It's just very much a character-driven book. So I guess that was a really long way to say that I really recommend this book, The Great Believers by Rebecca Makkai. And if you have a chance to pick it up, unless you're into like high-paced, plot-driven novels, then in which case this is not the book for you. But if you're into development of characters, and or if you're interested in learning about what it was like during the AIDS epidemic, I think this is a really great one. I really loved it. So those are the only two books that I finished. I read a little bit of The Origins of Totalitarianism. I'm on chapter 3, and every paragraph is really thought-provoking for me, so I'm kind of reading it chapter by chapter. No, not chapter. Paragraph by paragraph, which is taking a while because I have to stop and think about every paragraph for like 24 or 48 hours. So I'm enjoying it. It was just slow going. Same thing with Looking for Lorraine, actually. And part of the reason is because these books, I'm seeing parallels in these books as far as oppressed minorities and intersectionality, like how things and allies can make use of intersectionality to try to prevent things from happening, if that makes sense. So I haven't finished either one of these. I'm getting very close on Looking for Lorraine, very close to finishing, nowhere near finishing The Origins of Totalitarianism. So like I said, I'm buddy reading this with Charlotte, who is also taking her time, which is fantastic because it's almost a meditative book for me. I think I'm just taking it very slowly and then breathing and thinking about it. So that's everything that I've read this week. I'm kind of at an impasse. I'm not sure what I'm going to pick up next, fiction-wise. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. Otherwise, if you have any comments, leave me a comment down below, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.